Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. It's sunny in Buffalo by some miracle. I don't know what it is there, Russ. It looks sunny there.
It is sunny. It's about 71. It's been nice for the last few days. Really, we're actually getting a real spring. So it's kind of nice. I'm enjoying it. Some cool days, not overly hot days, some cooler nights. So it's nice.
Okay, start us off with the pre-show.
All right. So the continuing saga of the Oakland A's, and we didn't get a chance to say rest in peace, Vida Blue, but he was a pitcher I did watch a lot growing up, and actually had a lot of discussions in my neighborhood about him and Tom Seaver because Blue had won the MVP. He'd won World Series. He eventually faced off not against Seaver because it was Capish Hunter, but still same World Series in '73. So there was always a lot of discussion for a while. So I had a good admiration for Vida Blue. I don't know if you covered him, Kev, or
yeah, no, I've got a story about him, which I think I've told before, but it was a while ago. But I also pointed out, I've said this many times, the Vida Blue 25-4 or 24-5 season that he had was the most dominant pitching performance for a season I've ever seen. Much more dominant, in my opinion, than Denny McClain's 31 win season.
Don't tell Denny that, though.
Yeah, no, don't tell Denny that. But it was more dominant just because Vida Blue was essentially unhittable.
He was.
Like, I don't know. I've never seen analytics from that year, but I got to believe that players' opposing batting averages were below 1 on that season because he was so unhittable. But here's my story. Went to the Field of Dreams. It was a long time ago. I was invited there by Upper Deck for a story, and when we got there, Randy Hundley had a baseball fantasy camp going on, and the campers were playing against an all-star team that he had put together, and the pitcher on the other team was Vida Blue. And Randy had set up a jugs gun behind so you could see, and Vida, who at that time would have been in his 40s, I'd say late 40s. See, he died at 73. How old was he?
Yeah.
I would say he was in his, 45, 46, somewhere in that area, 47 maybe. But anyway, he was bringing it. He was throwing in the 80s, and the campers were starting to grouse. And they were just complaining about how hard he was throwing it. And Vida got a little peeved. So he stalks off the mound, and stalks is the right word. He goes to the bench, and they're all sitting on this bench like little eaters. And he goes, "Hey, do you want to go and tell your friends that you hit Vida Blue when he had his best shit? Or do you want to go out there and tell him that you hit him when I lobbed it over or you could hit it? Make up your mind and let me know," he says. And he stalks back to the mound, and everybody kind of looked at each other. And he ends up going to the next guy comes up to bat. He digs in, he hits a foul ball, and everybody got off the bench and got on their knees and bowed to the guy for fouling one off against Vida Blue. But it was a great scene. It was a great moment. And it was, I'm sure, a lesson for those guys. I mean, that's a true statement. You want them to lob it up and let you hit it, or you want to dig in and say, "Hey, I hit the ball of Vida Blue." When he was
numbers. Well, one number is he only made 14,750 that year in '71. Batting average against was 189, and his WAR is a 9.0. I've seen Seaver, I think, as high as a 9.2.
Well, wasn't his best year
as well, but it's hard to get.
Wasn't his best year '73? Wasn't that the year he won the Cy Young?
No, 71 is the MVP year.
What was it? What was his record?
24 and 5? 24 and 8, 1.82. He threw 312 innings.
Yeah. I mean, it was so bad. I do remember this. The Tigers had a doubleheader against them, and rather than throw their ace Mickey Lolich against Vida in a premier matchup, they threw a sacrificial lamb that they brought up from the minors against Vida, and just essentially, like a chess guy resigning the game. Yeah. They resigned that first game, and then they put Lolich in trying to salvage, a split in the doubleheader.
Well, here's the second part of this thing. So the A's now have bought a plot of land on the Vegas Strip, and the Tropicana is going to get demolished, and they're going to build a $1.5 billion, 30,000-seat ballpark. Now, they're going to be the third major team in town. I still hold true that I think that the Golden Knights, because they were there first, are always going to have the hearts of the fans. I think the Raiders, just because it's football, people see it. I'm worried about a 30,000 seat ballpark on the Strip because the 51s have never done particularly great there, and baseball.
It better be a dome stadium. I'll just say that, because if it isn't, people will fry. But just one thing.
Comment on this. Did you hear
one thing before we stop? One thing before we start. In terms of power lefties, that might be the most dominant year, but you have to consider, some of the years that Koufax had with the Dodgers.
Sure.
And Guidry's year in '77, where he went 25.
I watched a lot of his games that year.
But the reason the blue was unique was he was a power lefty. A lot of these lefties, the Warren Spahns, they were like devious with like screwballs or whatever, knuckle. A lot of them were not power pitchers. And Blue was definitely a flame-throwing power lefty. Now you see those guys all the time. You see Clayton Kershaw. You see,
but
back in the day, those guys were not common, Kev.
No, that's for sure. I would say Gibson's year too was up there with Vitamin.
1.12 ERA.
Yeah, that year, even he was unhittable. I watched him in the World Series.
Had an unhittable year too. He had
Koufax. I know a lot about because he was one of my favorite players when I was a kid. And you're right. I mean, the big thing for me though, for Vita Blue, was he was the first guy with the hard breaking slider.
Yes.
He did the backdoor slider, breaking down and making your feet move in the batter's box. And it was still, there was probably only an 8-9 mile an hour difference between his fastball and his slider. It was a hard slider. And that breaking pitch made him really unbeatable because the other guy, like Koufax, would just rear back and fire it, and a lot of the guys in that era, Gibson was like that too. Not that they didn't have other pitches, but mostly they were throwing a fastball. And
good luck not ending up in the hospital if you dug in. If you kicked the dirt at all against Gibson, he would go after you. I mean, he even in his retirement when he was a pitching coach for the Atlanta Braves and when Torrey was the manager in like '82, that they would interview Gibson on TBS, and he basically said, "You kick a stone in the batter's box, I'm going to throw it at your head." That was his.
Yeah, I mean, no, he was like that with teammates. He was a grumpy man. I mean, I met him a couple of times, and I tried to, you when the guys get older, like you want to engage them, and what as a kid, and just to make small talk, and he was not into that whatsoever. So he was just really grumpy.
Yeah. So what I want to throw to Eck is Eck, baseball on the Strip, 30,000 seats. That's a tough sell. I think they're hoping for more than what's going to be there.
Is it going to be an indoor thing?
They didn't say.
It's got to be a retractable dome. All I can say is this:
you really have to.
Yeah, I mean, if they in Texas they have a retractable dome. Otherwise, people would be dying of heat stroke.
I will say this: at 1.5 billion, it doesn't sound like it's a dome because domes usually cost more.
All I can say is this: I know that people who are Red Sox fans and who are Yankee fans are already saying, "I'm booking trips to Vegas."
Yeah,
but those are the hardcore fans that you'll get from like all the Northeast cities, but they still have to fill up 80 games.
Well, as a guy who covered the hockey coming to Vegas story aggressively, like I wrote a lot of stories on it, what was said there is that it's never going to work, that the casinos will buy all the tickets, but they'll be sold, but the people won't show up because they're going to comp them. It'll never work. It will work because people like to gamble and they like to go to an arena when they're, and watch whatever they're gambling on. So
it's going to be a partial dome. See,
so I think it will work, especially with a very limited seating capacity like they're going to have. I think it's going to be one of the hottest tickets.
On a Tuesday night in April, they're going to have.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, nights. Vegas is always packed with people. It's not.
Yeah, that's the thing, and they're always looking for something unique to do. And males are going to
gambling, right? Like they say, I'm going to see a baseball game. I'm not going there to gamble.
Well, you think they're going to stay for a full 9 innings too if they're gamblers? No, they're not.
They don't care. They got the money. They got the ticket already.
Also, you got to remember that the other thing you don't think about in this area is like It is also just a place with the suburbs and things like that, and people who
Oh, I
live
get
there.
it, but then why hasn't local baseball done well there?
Because it's local baseball.
All right.
It's not the major leagues.
Right. I think it's like it is a town that is used to having big names there. It's a big ticket town. It's not like you bring a minor league team in there. It's not necessarily.
It's a national city. I mean, it's not back in the day when Jerry Tennant was the coach at UNLV, and that was the only show in town. Now it's major league all the way around.
And games is a lot to fill. I don't know if they're filling that, man.
Yeah, they are, man. I'm telling you, because it's becoming a vacation spot as well. The people bring their families, so they're looking at night what they're going to do, and they'll you can go see the Blue Man Group at $140 a ticket or whatever it is, or you go see a baseball game for $30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to say something about about tickets for a second, real quick, before we go, because I do before we get back into this thing. So I was trying to get Taylor Swift tickets for my daughter who's turning 21, and that might not know that, but she's turning 21 in the week, and I was really excited about the concept of getting
that makes me feel old. Actually.
I know, makes me all feel old. But Taylor Swift coming down, we've seen a lot of times, and our buddy plays in Taylor Swift's band. He used to play, doesn't actually play in the band anymore. He now is just tour director, and so he's been trying to get me some tickets and stuff like that too, but. I've never seen anything like this scalper wise. You guys are. You go on StubHub. The cheapest ticket for she's playing in the Eagles Stadium, Lincoln Financial Field, 3 nights: Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The cheapest ticket for any of those nights you can get for one ticket,
$500,
$1,800.
Oh my god!
Well,
for one ticket.
I'm on Game Time.
All right.
Game Time, you can get them for $1,100. That's a bargain.
$1,100. All right. Well, I was on StubHub, $1,800. That's a deal then. $1,100. For one ticket.
One ticket.
Someone would So forget about a family of 4 going. And maybe I just send her by herself and say, pay for your next semester.
Honestly, it gets to the point of stupidity. Look, there are things that I paid really good money for back in the day, but really good money still wasn't maybe 1/10 of my salary for the season, for the year. There's nobody I would pay for in concert to pay 1/10 of my salary.
Yeah,
if I was 20-something years old. No way.
You're better off renting a plane and flying it over Lincoln Financial Field.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and I looked at other places too because I thought, hey, maybe we can get it for $500 or $600 someplace else and travel there and make a thing of it, But it's the same everywhere. This
is essentially what's wrong with the ticket industry, because I know I saw people online when they were trying to get tickets when it first went online, when Taylor Swift was first announced.
Yeah.
And some got it, but the ones that got it had to wait 3 or 4 hours at times because the process was so slow, and they still, were paying $400.
I think they were I think the regular price is around $400 to $300 a ticket.
If you're starting at $400, something's wrong.
I agree.
Taylor Swift, I know she's got the popularity, but at some point when you're the artist, you got to put a stop to this.
Yeah, but how can you? You can't. There's nothing.
Well, no, you can. If the initial ticket price, you can control that.
Yes.
But listen, I have so much respect for her, and I think she's great, and I think that she's a great.
But the problem is that you can't control these bots buying up dozens of tickets. There's no way to do it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And the people are out there buying tickets. And this, if they bought tickets for this, it was one of the best investments of all time. If you're going to sell them on Spotify, or not Spotify, but on set. Now, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm going to really watch how it gets to when it gets to Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Will these tickets come down drastically? Because I can't.
They won't come down. You might see the oddball that says I can't go, so I'll sell it. But they're not going down.
There's so many tickets at $1,700. I just don't see that there's that many people who can do that. I just think that's a crazy thing. $1,700 is the cheapest. They go up from there. Russ. That's the cheapest seat in the house.
The natives are getting restless. So
all right, let's go. Sorry, guys. I just had to vent on that one. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, May 10th, 2023.
I'm Michael Lagello, and although I think she's very talented, I'm glad after hearing this that I'm not a Taylor Swift fan.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and Mike, she's probably glad you're not too.
Kevin Allen.
Wow. Thanks.
I'm Michael, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is a podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on comings and goings in the hockey world, and to tell you that no matter what you hear out there, the Vancouver Canucks are not going to be able to trade for the top pick overall.
Oh,
It's not going
please.
to be able to happen. It's not going to happen.
Before we get started on the games and stuff, I wanted to bring up, we lost a really good hockey writer. I believe he worked for HockeyBuzz for a while too. Rick Sadowski passed away at age 71, I
He
think.
was for HockeyBuzz for quite a few years.
Damn.
Yeah, I thought so. But, he was with NHL.com. He covered the Avalanche for years for one of the papers there. But even before then, I knew him when he was starting out. He covered the Kings out in Los Angeles. Probably covered the NHL for, 35 plus years, I would assume. He died, I think it was over the weekend. They didn't announce it right away, but really a good guy. It's become a cliche and you say that nobody had a bad word to say about it, but Rick Sadowski was just such a classy guy, and they were friendly wherever you went. I mean, some sports writers are kind of grumpy, and Rick wasn't any of that.
I don't know anybody like that.
I couldn't tell you. We had him at least. I'm going to say at least
4 or 5 years at least.
Yeah, and he was just amazing. Like he was one of those guys who was just consistent. Mm-hmm. Always had good opinions. Never bad word to say about anybody. Any comments? Just always professional in every which way. And for an older guy, sometimes comments can get to people. Like a Tim Panaccio, for example. Comments can get to people, but and Rick never let it get to him. And he was just good. He was solid. He's been sick for a while, Kevin. He's been sick for a long time. He had not been for a while.
That's true. He was real pro, and the players always liked him because he was very conversational in his interviewing approach. Mm-hmm. He didn't ask those kind of questions that, the players look at you and they answer the question, but they're going, why are you asking me this? One of those type things. His questions always had relevance to them. And yet, they felt, he could disarm an athlete with his questioning style.
By asking a thoughtful question, let me ask this before we get into the games, because we the lottery was Monday and we didn't have you on yesterday, so I wanted to get your feedback on this. There was a lot of sort of chattering in the blogosphere and even some prominent writers regarding Chicago winning the lottery and how that was inherently unfair, or it wasn't good in terms of the hockey gods because Chicago, the everything with the Kyle Beach situation and then the exodus of all their players from their championship teams, and just the fact that the Chicago is going to get booed when the pick comes up in Nashville, and it's like, okay, if the NHL wanted to avoid this ugly stigma of Chicago getting the number one pick and now being able to draft a franchise player in Connor Bedard, they should have penalized them in terms of not being able to pick first overall or taking the first round pick away instead of a $2 million fine. And now they've sold tickets and that $2 million fine has been paid off in 24 hours. I just don't get, the ire should be pointed at the NHL for not penalizing them for this situation, because after the fact, now criticizing the Blackhawks, I think it's lame. It really is.
Well, yeah, I think there are people who are still mad at the Blackhawks organization for how they handled it and the cover up, which was, we hear this all the time. The cover up was worse, and there were people in powerful places, including Joel Quenneville, and the GM and the president that were aware of this and didn't do anything about it. So I think that's why the fans are still mad at the Blackhawks now. But there's no doubt. I've seen memes to this effect, but it shows the incongruency of their punishment. The $2 million fine, for what they did, as opposed to violating the draft. Workout players for prospects in the Capitals, and they lose a first round pick. The Devils lost a first round pick, and then you lose. You don't lose any draft picks over something that is pretty egregious. Not pretty egregious, is egregious. I think that's why people have a problem with it. And in fairness, it's always hard to figure out a fairness scale for punishment. We don't do a great job of it in the real criminal world. I certainly, we've all seen in the employment arena that there's unfairness there in terms of how they lay that all out. And I think there's unfairness here. I mean, it's always hard to figure out what's going on, but I think that it's certainly justified for people to be upset about this. I mean, if you feel strongly about, making sure, and we should, that, we take care of our athletes and everything. If you want to criticize the league for this, I think they've left themselves open for that. And
my feeling is, when I saw it happen, I knew it would be a boon for the league. That was obvious. But you want to boo the logo? Boo the logo. Don't boo the kid. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
He's getting drafted into the league. Don't boo him. It's not going to do that does no good for anybody.
I mean, I talked to some people at the league about this yesterday because I saw that people good criticisms and tried to get to the bottom of, was that considered? Was this considered like to take a draft pick away, in its punishment thing? And while one person did admit that it probably should have been considered, others said it never was considered. And someone said also that, the reason that those other situations like Arizona or, New Jersey, these people who have been punished for draft picks, because those things were hockey prospect related, then the draft is a hockey prospect thing.
I mean, the league has said why. Like, it's not a mystery. They said it was a competitive issue there, and this was not. I mean, like, it's not like this is a big mystery that needed investigation.
But the question is that legitimate? Like, is that?
No, it isn't legitimate.
Right.
But
they took a first round pick away from New Jersey because of cap circumvention, because of Ilya Kovalchuk's contract. So you can say that, or you could say what John Chaika did in Arizona because of scouting players and
I mean, the way that they've explained it is that in the case of Arizona and New Jersey, they were trying to get a competitive advantage in the field for doing that. Now, I'm not justifying this. I'm just saying they said why they were doing it at the time.
And they said to me that's why they didn't do this, which is like, to me, that's, I don't know.
You go to all the other sports.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't disagree with that either. But if you go to all other sports, they all act like this. If it's money related,
this is very
customary. If it's money related or competitive issue related, those come down the hardest. The human rights stuff, that's second. That takes a back seat, and it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, the Miami Dolphins had a first-round pick taken away from them because they supposedly tampered with Tom Brady, and they took a number one draft pick away from them. But So no, all I can say is this: I remember the 2016 draft and Toronto having the first overall pick in Buffalo, and they viscerally booed the Maple Leafs. But then when Austin Matthews was selected, they cheered Austin Matthews. I hope that's what the case is in Nashville, that they, if they want to boo the Blackhawks, who they're one of their rivals, fine, but don't boo the kid.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the way to look at it. And if it spills over and they're booing the kid, the one good thing is this has been talked about so much already that at least Connor Bedard obviously understands that it's not about him. It's about the team, so.
I saw a really interesting thing getting to the Red Wings in this first pick overall, Kev, which the Red Wings never even expect anymore. As you've said, they fully don't think that any hockey gods are shining on them, but that they have had. This was put by Will Birchfield, and I found it on Reddit. That the Red Wings have the most losses in the NHL over the last 7 seasons. Losses.
Yeah, they've dropped 8 spots.
Yeah, and the picks they've had to show for are number 9, 6, 6, 4, 6, 8, and 9.
Yes. Yeah.
But they're getting great players, so it doesn't really.
Yeah, but they're not getting. Someone wrote this, and this is so true. The Red Wings don't have anybody remotely like Matthews or Bedard. They've missed out. I mean, they don't have the generational player. Like there were periods when the Red Wings seemed a little irked at Lucas Raymond this season, for example, where you don't. I don't think they're ever going to be irked at.
I think Seider's pretty close generational. If not,
Yeah, no, I mean I agree, but that's been the mostly we were talking about forwards, but
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, I
maybe-
mean that's a fair point, Ak. You're right. He is. I think he can be generational for sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Red Wings will seize on the rumors that we've heard over the last couple of years, and when Toronto decides to trade William Nylander, maybe they'll be in the sweepstakes for him because I do. Yeah, but we'll talk about that later on. But I think he might be available coming the summer. But anyway.
Yeah.
Did you see the North Carolina governor? There's an interesting story out here that the North Carolina governor going into last night's games feels that the ESPN announcers are extraordinarily biased against the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, I did read that. I'm so tired of that.
I know.
I mean, they gave people just give broadcasters and journalists way too much credit for caring.
Joe Buck,
yeah.
Yeah, Joe Buck hates every NFL team and every Major League Baseball team. Jim Nance, the same thing. It's like, I mean, they don't. These are national announcers. They try to play it down the middle.
Although I will say, since we're bringing up announcing, John Anderson's attempted joke at Zach Whitecloud's last name when he was showing highlights, talking about the toilet paper company. Yeah, that's a big time miss, and he did apologize for it. And I give Whitecloud credit for really being a stand-up guy. But honestly, if that was me, I would not have acted like Zach Whitecloud. I'd have been spitting fire.
Yeah, I would have had it. I mean, the thing that was most funny about the Carolina governor thing to me was that he was saying how they were extolling the talents of the New Jersey Devils. Like the New Jersey Devils, a team that have always been extolled by the league. Like that's if there's one team, if there's one place you can say that has gotten a whole lot of love over the years, it's the New Jersey Devils, right? Like.
Yeah, that's like so far from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, like if you looked at it, and the same is true in writing. I've through the years paid attention to this. They talk about who's ever winning.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's essentially what happens. You get in a lead. I mean, it's the same thing. We write our stories that way, especially when you're a national writer.
Right.
Like, if you dominate a team, or not dominate, if you just win, that's who we write about. So we say why you won. So
and it's the last 24-hour thing too, which is so crazy. Like, it really, the minds of people in hockey or in any sport are just what happened. The most recent is all that matters all the time.
Well, I was going to say of the perennial contenders that we've seen over the last 20 years, 25 years, the Devils are probably the one that had the most criticism heaped on them because of the way they played. Defensively boring, low scoring. It's like nobody criticized the Blackhawks or the Penguins or the King. I mean, the Kings maybe they were closest, but no, they. I mean, I always admired the Devils teams because they won. They had the formula with Niedermeyer and Stevens and Brodeur and that group of players. But everybody hated them because they played boring hockey.
I mean, here's what I would say. It's nice that the mayor's finally showing up to hockey games, but learn about the
governor. He's the governor. He's the governor.
It's nice that he's actually showing up now that they're deep into the playoffs. But
But to talk about this 24-hour thing is such a weird thing. Did you see now that the team that is the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup is the Florida Panthers?
Yeah. That's shocking.
It's just like, no, I mean, we all know the Panthers are playing really well. We all can acknowledge that, but they made the playoffs on the last day of the season, right?
What are the odds?
Yeah, but as somebody pointed out, there are only 8 teams left, and 4 of them have not looked very good. So it was down to 4 teams, and they've been the best of a really bad lot.
I mean, if you think about it right now, they have the hottest goalie in hockey right now. They won 6 games in a row. They're physically pounding every opponent, even a team that like Boston, who still had the reputation of being the big bad Bruins. They're about to sweep the Leafs. The 2 teams that they possibly could play in the Eastern Conference Final, the Devils. I mean, they don't even know what goaltender is going to practice, let alone start in game 5.
Let me ask this question, and I'm a novice bettor. I am. I don't really bet, and I don't really write about it. If you had $20 just to burn, wouldn't you go at the Leafs at -1 just because they only have to win 1 game?
2,500 to 1
to win the series.
No,
to win the Stanley Cup.
I think it's
-25
tonight's game.
2,500 or whatever that was.
No, they're not 25 to 1.
That's what they said yesterday on the NHL Network.
100 to win the cup.
To win the cup, yeah.
Win the cup. I'm talking about winning the cup. I think that's not a bad bet to throw out there, even though they're down 3-0. Like,
Go ahead and make that bet. They count on people like you making that bet.
Yeah, I mean, just
So,
Do me a favor.
if for some reason they win tonight, Mike.
Bet
See,
$10
minus 180 on the money line. My bad.
Bet $10 for me. Go ahead. But no, if they're gonna win,
I'll bet $10. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bet $40, $10 for each of us
just
on that bet.
No,
And
it's
I'm not taking the money from you, but if we win, we're going to split this equally. It's $40 bet equally.
in the
All right.
well, I mean, it is a good bet. I mean, it's a good value bet. But, historically, there's only been 2 teams, right? That's come back from 3-0.
Plus 185 tonight for the Leafs.
Yeah.
Heck, put the money on the Leafs for tonight at plus 185.
And that'll guarantee a sweep. But no, 40.
Yeah, plus 80, so you win $85. Like,
That's not very good. Like to make.
you got to bet 100. You bet 100, you get $85.
If I put $40 down and they're to win the cup and they're 250 to 1, right? Whatever.
42 Maple Leafs.
How much would we win? How does that work?
What? They're 44 plus 40, 4,200.
No, I put $40 down on a team that's 250. They're plus 200 plus 2,500. Sorry, they're plus 25.
So they're 42. They're 42 to 1 at 4,200. So it would be 42 times whatever $40.
There've been
$2,400 or something.
There have been 4 teams that came back from 3-0. 42 Maple Leafs, 75 Islanders, 2010 Flyers, and 2014 Kings against San Jose.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Explain this to me for a second because I'm not a gambler. Okay, so they are plus 2,500.
So that's on $100 bet.
So if I bet $100 and they win the Stanley Cup, I get 2,500 back.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
So at $40, you get 4/10 of 2,500.
Okay, cool.
So you'll be minus 100.
Okay. I did want to say one more thing because I really like to get your guys' thought on this, and I may just be out to lunch on this because maybe it's not that big a deal, and maybe it shouldn't be, but I always feel it is. When I was covering the league, I wanted it always to be bigger. I mean, I'm a hockey guy. I want a lot more people to read my stories, so I wanted it to grow, and I was always just kind of bummed that the people within the league, like they're the worst at self-promotion. Like in hockey, they go out of their way to criticize their own league.
Yeah.
They just do. They just constantly grouse about the officials, about this, about that, about the rules. They do it all the time. And nothing sums that up more than when they do this draft lottery. I mean, come on, folks. You're on this video, and you look like you do not give a rat's rear end about what's going on in this, and you look displeased and angry. You look angry.
Quality was bad. Did you notice some of the video?
Yeah,
Zoom. It's Zoom, so who knows what kind of.
But the people, like the picture of John Davidson, Jarmo Kekalainen.
Oh man!
I mean, waiting on. I mean, they just looked so angry that they had to be on there. Eisenman looked, like, why am I here? Like all those people, like, come on, like this is a big night for the league. Like, at least put on a little smile and like
John Davidson was waiting on his dinner reservations and looked at his watch and
at least
I was standing in line
or something too, like
45 minutes. Like it's the absolute worst.
Yeah,
and contrast that to even the enthusiasm, like even the drafts, like. The enthusiasm of getting a warm handshake from Gary Bettman when players walking up to Goodell hugging these guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, like, and it's, and how about that one guy at the NFL draft who on the second day, he didn't go first day. He told them, I'm still going up and getting my hug. Like he marched up there in the second round and the commissioner went out there and hugged him just like he does all the other guys. And I saw a couple of guys get quoted. He said, the biggest thing about being drafted is going out and getting that hug from the commissioner. He said, that is an NFL tradition now.
It's gotten to the point, Kev, where like they're going up and they're picking them up and it's like getting room. Yeah.
The players love that. They love that tradition.
Gary Bettman because he's not a hugger, though. I mean, that's not his
fault.
No.
I'm not criticizing for that. I mean, but my point is, we don't do enough, like, to make this. Like, one of the reasons they screwed up is, you can't actually do this live because the first ball you pull out is the winner. So there would be no suspense if you did it live.
Right, so go back.
That's why we always have to do it.
Better, yes, they can.
No, by the way, just to, and I'm not gloating about this because I feel the pain of the Vancouver Canucks fans when it comes to this. The whole thing is a series of 4 numbers. And I guess it was like 4, 5, 9, and 12. And that's what Chicago had, the combination of those 4, and they got the first pick. 4, 5, 9, and 13 was Vancouver. So Vancouver missed out by 1 digit on winning the lottery and getting Connor Bedard.
Yeah, but there are other teams that, when you miss, if it was the last digit was the ball that said 16, you're still only 1 ball away.
Right.
So it's not the number. I mean, it's just
doesn't matter how many digits you are away if you're away, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the Leafs and Connor McDavid. They missed out by 1 digit.
Yeah, it was 1 digit, but it's like the person that was 4 digits away still wasn't any farther away than
right. It doesn't mean that you get the second pick.
Yeah, it's not what's on the ball.
Listen, I'll answer the chat room. If Gary Bettman wanted to hug me, I'd hug the guy. Sure,
I've hugged Gary Bettman
every year.
Well, I've told this story before. I mean, obviously, I know Gary Bettman, and we've been at particularly at the Hall of Fame, and it's almost part of our tradition. I mean, I covered the league for 30 some years, so he knows me really well, and he knows my wife. And I always say my wife, who is a hugger, hugs Gary Bettman, and I've often said maybe she's the only person who, when he meets him, just goes up and hugs him. Like, she knows him, she chats with him, says, Gary, it's good to see you. We we see each other once a year, so.
Even when you were nice enough to have Jody and I up in Toronto, I introduced Bettman to her, and he hugged her. She remembers this too. She's like, I hugged Gary Bettman.
I've never hugged him. I've said hello. I remember at the media mixer in Dallas in 2018. I said hello, but that was about it. Let's talk about the game, the first game last night, because I drew this conclusion, and maybe I'm wrong, because until a team is eliminated, I know Eck thinks the Leafs have a chance to come back against Florida. He's out of his mind, but that's whatever. But I think New Jersey is toast, and not only because of the goaltending situation, because now Mike Morial reported after the game that Vitek Vanacek was basically having some sort of crisis of confidence after giving up 5 goals, and then they bring in Schmid, who they pulled after the first 2 games. But I just saw a more adult, mature response from Carolina in Game 4 after getting whacked in Game 3. Kev, I mean, they really, especially in that span, I think it was 4 goals in 5 minutes. They took control of that game. It was over with, and now I don't know if New Jersey can recover.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just more about the disadvantage that they're in now, more than it is that they've lost their will to live. But yeah, I mean, they're down. They didn't get it done. You needed to win that game. I mean, we've talked about this before. I've long believed that Game 4 is the most important game. I don't even know how you can argue that, because it's always the difference between 3-1 and 2-2, unless there's a 3-0 lead. But so that was a tough game to lose. You dig yourself a big hole, and Carolina just looked like the better team. And that's been the problem with these postseasons, is we haven't had as many of these real competitive games that we like to see. We don't like to see these kind of games that get out of hand and there's no drama to them. So, it's a shame they couldn't rise. But
my only criticism is, and Mike and I were talking about this, when it was 3-0, you did need to go back to Schmid. Not because you were burning Vanacek per se, but because now you've kind of put yourself in the position of, am I going to actually go to another goalie, a third goalie, which if you go to a third goalie in a series, the series is over. But if he'd have gone to Schmid in that game, and Schmid had stopped some pucks and kept the score down the rest of the game, there'd be this hope that, okay, look, he got it back from where he was earlier in the series. Let's go with Schmid, and now we're just going to ride with him. But now it's too much of a question, because Lindy went too much the other way, and he let 5 goals go in. And now it's like they're talking about, bringing in a goalie cold who hasn't played in a long time. It's like, to me, it's a bad look now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Someone brought up the fact that Slavin is the best, Andrew in the chat room, Slavin's the best, plus minus in the playoffs. That is a really interesting.
That is an interesting stat.
And that Jacob Slavin is definitely underrated. There's no question about it, like for what he is and for what he does.
But that game was snowballing, and Lindy could have felt it. He didn't call timeout. He didn't change his goaltending. We all knew what was happening, though. It was like goal.
Yeah. It was
like, come on.
And I think, New Jersey doesn't, this is winning the first round was great for a young team like New Jersey. They're going to be there. They're going to be good for a while. I hope that they make a series of this because I want to watch more hockey games, but
right.
I don't know.
And you knew the Canes were a tough team, but this was their chance to at least try and fight for another day. And they sort of gave up that game. And now, again, if they go to Blackwood, that series is over.
Yeah, I don't think who knows where they're going to go to. Then the late game.
I think it's over no matter who they go to.
Yeah, I think it is too.
It might be, but like X said, they could have. My big thing was, they were going to have trouble winning in Carolina after I saw those first two games. But in the end, you definitely did not set yourself up for any kind of success for the next game by just letting your other goalie get burned out, and now you having to wonder, who am I going to use in the next game?
Right. So as far away as the Eastern Conference games series seem to be almost decided, we have no idea what's going to happen in the West. Now we have zero. we have everybody's at 2-2, right? So we are in that spot where
no.
Vegas is 2-1, but you're
hoping Vegas 2-1, right? They've only played right.
You're hoping it's going to be 2-2. But I'll just say this because I expected Dallas to get off the mat against Seattle, and I'm not taking anything away from the Kraken. They I didn't expect them to beat Colorado, and they played really well.
I agreed that Dallas was probably going to win that game yesterday.
Yeah, but it was desperation time for Dallas, and they showed they haven't won a championship, but that team, this is a team that got to the Cup final with pretty much the same roster.
Yeah,
and if you've seen a more brave performance than Miro Heiskanen in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I don't know, because he comes back after taking a puck off the face, wearing a full face shield, and plays half the game, plays 30 minutes. He got one of my top 5 votes for the Norris, and I'm pretty proud of that vote based on the way he played last night, because he is one of the best 3 or 4 defensemen in this league, no doubt.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Ken.
Okay, well, I'm just going to agree with you. I was going to bring it up if you didn't. I'm not sure I would use the word brave, because I think we got to reserve that for EMTs and stuff. But he has certainly showed a lot of fortitude, grit, to be able to play it with a full face mask. Like, he's still feeling pain. I'm sure they gave him something, but
when he walked out of the bus. They take the video on ESPN or the side of his face you just looked at it and you felt pain. That's why it's like, you're in the sports parlance, him playing with that is pretty brave.
Here's what I'm going to say.
And the second element of this is just the fact that for anybody, healthy or not, to play 31 minutes is insane. That's 1950s minutes. It's different.
My feeling was, not since Patrick Thoresen took a slap shot to the nether regions and came back the next game with Miro Heiskanen showing the same kind of fortitude. I know the guy who does the ratings for EA and for the NHL series. He raised the toughness level on Patrick Thoresen, and now I will ask him to raise the toughness level of Miro Heiskanen just the same way, because that's just, you got to do it.
And Russ, the following day, Patrick Thoresen was singing soprano at the opera.
Eck was there. I was there, man. He was hurt. And I saw him in the locker room. He was hurt.
I was watching the game, but I've seen it shown over and over again yesterday in the baseball game. Speaking of that, there was Akil Baddoo, a Tigers outfielder, on first base, tries to steal second base. Catcher throws the ball down. He slides in. The throw hits him right where you don't want to be hit, as he is sliding in. Now, here's the insult to injury. The road runner with the anvil falling on him after he's already fallen off the cliff. The second baseman then reaches over after the ball has hit him in the family jewels and catches the ball off his body, so he's out. In addition to being hit there by a throw, he's tagged out, in the family jewels. I might add.
In the
Yeah, it was a brutal play. Brutal all around. So
that's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
that's a tough one.
I thought the most gutsy thing that we saw this playoff, honestly, was the Ryan Hartman thing in the Minnesota series, like the first game, I guess, of that series, where he gets like, it looked like he was going to be out forever, and then he comes back and scores the overtime goal when he got hit in the knee.
Yeah,
I barely skating.
Yeah,
I got an old USA Today story about those kinds of things. So 19 Stanley Cup final between Pittsburgh and Minnesota. What is that? 91-92. One of those.
81. Oh no, 90. Oh, Minnesota.
It's 91-92. Well, anyway. So I believe it was Stuart Gavin. I hope I have this right, but I think it was Stuart Gavin.
Yeah.
So he's playing on that. And back then, they used to tell you what was the injuries of the players. And in the notes, they had Stuart Gavin, day-to-day, bleeding in the testicles. That's what it was, in parentheses. So that's how I wrote it in USA Today. That's the official version of it. And Stuart saw me, and he goes, Kevin, like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just being accurate. And he goes, my mother reads your paper.
That's awesome.
Stuart Gavin, ruptured scrotum.
I love that. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
That play was nuts, quite literally. But anyway.
All right, so let's move on to tonight. As we promised, we would talk a little bit about the Toronto, Florida game tonight, and where we're going to get.
They're playing. Yeah.
I am going to. Like I said, I don't think this is a sweep. I think Toronto wins tonight. I'm not going to say Toronto comes back and wins the series, but I don't. And everybody's going to say that because I said that, they're going to lose. But I'm telling you, I think that.
Why did you say anything? You could have said
yeah,
nothing.
Of course.
Because I'm really not omnipresent. Like I'm not like that's really not my thing. I do not have
with every
power
word
over all things as much as you guys might think I do.
With every word, it's a curse. No, but no, I'll just say, and this is an interesting perspective. I don't particularly agree with it. But Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman were talking on their show this morning, and Jeff was essentially saying it might be better for the Leafs to lose in 4 because if they win tonight and they go back to Toronto for Game 5 and they lose in front of their fans in 5, and they've gone 1-5 at Scotiabank Arena, the reaction might even be more vitriolic by the Toronto fan base. I don't know about that. All I know is I think there's more of a stigma if they get swept by a team that everybody thought that they were going to beat. That, there's going to be, I think there's going to be a reaction one way or the other.
Everybody thought they were going to beat them, though, by the way.
No, I said, I think most everybody. They were definitely favored, Ak.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say because
I want to say this. I think if you want to get the temperature of the team, and this wasn't a good sign for me, when you have Mitch Marner basically saying, we keep things inside the room, we don't really care what you think, meaning the media, you know what? Keep that to yourself. Don't tell the media that. We know what you're thinking, and it's not good.
Right. First of all, you saying that you don't care what the media thinks means that you know what the media is saying, right, and you do care what they think.
It was a horrible way to do it.
Right. And you will care when you get raked over the coals by every member of the media when you get swept in 4 games by a team.
I don't understand why
what's more likely? What's more likely, guys? The team that was 19 points less than the other team winning 4 in a row, or the team that was 19 points more than the other team winning 4 in a row?
No, that means anything to me. What means
I'm just saying. I mean, that's why I don't see a sweep. I think that it's like, the Panthers to win 4 in a row, it really, that would be 7 in a row versus teams that are 20 points or more better than them.
Right, but the regular season is only meaningful in one respect: getting in the tournament. And Florida has proven that.
Right.
So the LA Kings in 2012
proved,
or 2012 or 2014 when they got in on the last day, they proved it. It's home ice advantage.
20 points, like this is not like 5-point difference. There's a big difference here.
They could have finished 45 points ahead. It didn't mean anything between Florida and Boston. They had the most dominant regular season of our lifetime, and they lost to Florida.
You know what the worst thing is? The Toronto media is going to look and see who has a tan before the game starts, just because they had a couple days off in South Beach. And those guys, if they don't perform well, they're going to hear about it.
Russ, if I was down in Florida, I would have a tan, although I don't tan very well.
Oh, but it's a bad look, Mike. You can't have a tan going in.
It's almost had to be the worst 6 days anybody from Canada has ever spent in Florida. Like for these guys, like this, like it's beautiful out down there, and they can't.
it's not like they're Odell Beckham and the Giants going out on the boat. Nothing like that's happened. So, but I'll just say that. I'll just say this. I don't know if I buy the premise, Kev, that they're better off if they get swept, because that's never a good thing. But I do think that there's a storm coming, and the only way for the Leafs and their players to avoid it is to come back and do what Eck is saying and win 4 straight. And I think most people think that there's not a chance in hell that that's going to happen. So it's just a question of how much destruction will be told from the storm coming, whether it'll just be a player or two, or whether it be massive changes of the coach or the general manager. Yeah. And we won't know that until we see the aftermath.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess this is a question for the panel, because I don't have an answer to it. Do you think that it's already settled in their mind what will happen? I mean, is there, because I had a feeling, just based on conversations, that Brendan Shanahan has kind of an idea of how this will play out, if the team doesn't do well. Just from, talking to people who know Brendan, that, he's had kind of an idea. And then, I saw Larry Brooks, or I hope it's Larry Brooks. It's so hard to tell without the blue check marks anymore. But Larry Brooks had said, this is a scenario he heard.
Yes,
pardon me?
It was Brooks that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Larry. It was Larry Brooks.
It wasn't.
And then I also saw Elliot Friedman, who's been much copied, and he had something out there, and I won't say who, but a real good journalist got fooled on that as well. So that's why I said I hope it was the real Larry Brooks. But he put this out there that he's heard a scenario that Pittsburgh would hire Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, and then they would throw Sullivan overboard, and Sullivan is going to go to the Rangers. Now, the only reason I mean, it's not that Larry Brooks has never been wrong, but he has been right on some very big things that no one else had.
Sure.
So that's why, I mean, I throw it out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't as well. He's been around a long time. He knows important people.
Right.
I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind that he has heard this from somebody that he considers, credible.
Okay,
now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
when I was in Pittsburgh and spoke to a lot of people there, everybody felt like Mike Sullivan has the hammer there. He was going to get Hextall fired. He did. And he now holds the power. I don't think they're going to get rid of him based on that.
I've also heard that as well. But the guy who told me this said the only problem is none of us have a read. None of us have a read on the ownership in Pittsburgh. And he said, we don't know what kind of names would change everything for them.
Right.
That's
so
fair.
Like, that's the thing. He said, with a lot of things, we've seen these guys operate for many, many years. We have a real sense for how they do business.
Right.
And, he said, I think Mike Sullivan is the guy that's, they believe the ownership trusted him more than they trusted Hextall, and that's why Hextall's gone. So
I have a question for Mike.
Okay.
Since Stan Fisher just posted about the 1942 Stanley Cup and how Hap Day brought the Leafs back, I want to ask, is Sheldon Keefe as good as Hap Day, and can we look forward to this happening again all these years later?
The question, wait. The question is whether Stan Fischler was a Cub reporter in that 1942 Stanley Cup final.
Right.
All right, but just to answer what Kevin was talking about, and I didn't hear the I mean, I've heard the Pittsburgh rumor over the last couple weeks. I think the only way that is plausible is if because I think with the first round win that MLSE and Larry Tannenbaum, the ownership group of Rogers and Bell, want to extend a contract offer to Dubas. The question is whether he will now take it. And, I mean, if there's strings attached, how much power, but all those things are factoring in. I think, maybe he uses Pittsburgh as a threat to get more money or whatever. I mean, they've done this before with the NBA with Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri, and Dubas has always sort of followed what Ujiri did with the Raptors. I think this is, his way of maybe getting more power and more control with the Leafs. I think Shanahan wanted to have him signed to a contract extension last year. There was somebody in higher ownership, either one of the two sports entities or Tannenbaum, that said no. I would think that they've offered the contract, but whether he wants it, that's the question. It's like I don't. In terms of the criticism level, Dubas has gotten the least amount of criticism of everybody. Keefe for tactics and mostly the core group, but everybody basically thinks Dubas did everything that he possibly could to get this team as far as they could. And liked the moves that he made, like Shen and Achari and O'Reilly and all those. So I mean, I don't think his reputation in Toronto is intact. I mean, everybody right now is just reacting viscerally to the fact that this is a team that they got by Tampa and they thought, okay, now we're going to run the table, and no. And the problem is, again, the group that they have just can't get it done when it's counted on, and that's in the playoffs. So that's why I think that things are going to change in terms of the roster. But the only way Dubas is not back is if he decides he doesn't want to come back.
Yeah, I'll answer to this chat room question because they said Stefan Rosner said that Dubas was rumored with the Islanders, and I know Stefan, and he's going to have to listen to me in a charity softball game in a couple months, so I'll be nice to him. But Dubas is not coming in to be second fiddle to Lou with the Islanders and having him over his shoulder. He's not taking that position.
We've already done that.
Right.
He's already been there. He's already been there. Yeah, like that would be a really weird one. I
don't believe that rumor. I think it'll take a few days though. I don't think Dubas is going to instantly announce what is going to happen the minute this series ends. I do think he's going to take a few days, and It wouldn't shock me even if he calls Pittsburgh. Maybe he doesn't go in for an interview. But if you're just a human being, you probably are going to do that before you make that.
Well, his contract goes till
June the 30th, and
right, so if Pittsburgh have to ask for permission, right?
Right.
Yeah, it gets to that point.
And Toronto could easily say no. That's not.
It could.
Right, but then they just wait till June the 30th or wait till July 1st, and then his contract is over with. I mean,
they can say no and try to get something out of Pittsburgh too. There's different things they can do.
There's no benefit for the Leafs to say no, though. There really isn't a benefit there because, again, they're not getting a draft pick. Nobody's doing a draft pick anymore. We're past those days.
Right. Remember,
they have no desire to bring him back, but otherwise,
they denied Colorado a few years back talking to Dubas when he was assistant GM because they were going to make him general manager.
Right.
This is a different scenario. He's already general manager, and if they don't want to, if they want to sign him and he doesn't want to sign with them, then I'm sure they'll probably just say, okay, you're free to negotiate with other people.
I mean, because it doesn't hurt Pittsburgh to wait till his contract expires either.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, traditionally, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but teams don't really ask permission for lateral moves ever. Like that's not something that they would ask for. They would ask for permission for. Yeah,
but
they want to make him president or something.
They don't have a president. They could make him president and general manager if they want.
They could do that, right? But otherwise, I don't think they would have. Now, this is my other question for the panel, and Kevin, I'd like you to go first in this. They win the first round. I'm not ready to do the eulogy yet on this team, like I said. But how far back do they have to push here to make that first round victory mean anything at this point? Like if they lose in 4 straight, does that first round victory still mean something? Or if they take it to like 6 games, it's something like, okay, they lost in 6 games.
I think it does mean something because they exercised a demon that had been that had been a long time. So it's going to mean something. The problem is the hockey people know that Tampa wasn't very good. And so in the hockey world, it means less than in the fan world, and maybe to Mike. But I think everyone knows that that Tampa. I think Tampa knows too that Tampa was kind of struggling and trying to figure it out. But if they came back and tied it up or made it 3-2, that's a little better showing. And everybody understands, like Florida is playing really, really well. Like it's not a,
it's not San Jose, Detroit, 1990.
Yeah, it's not. You're not being embarrassed here. The Florida Panther last year was the President's Trophy winner. They've got Kachuk. They've got Barkov. They got a really good team. They've got a hot goalie. They're playing great, as Mike brought up before. They won 6 in a row. they look invincible. Like they're playing at such a high level, and we've seen those teams in the past do really well. So I don't think it's, it's not the fact that they're getting beat by Florida. I think it's just the fact that, they had high expectations and now they ran into a buzzsaw.
I think give you at least a little bit more hope here for a second, Mike. And I'm going to give you a little more hope. And I don't want that hope, okay? But
it's just unrealistic. But
Florida has been thriving on being the underdog throughout the playoffs, right? Yeah. Now suddenly they're not. And and I think that's after game 3. Like I think even after game 2, people were like, oh, the Leafs have won a lot of games on the road, but Florida going up 3-0. If it was 2-1 right now, it would be a lot different. People would be talking a lot differently, but it's 3-0. Right. But this is the first time now that they go into tonight expected to win.
Okay.
And that does change things that does change things for teams. It really does.
If you believe what Matthew Tkachuk said. No, it doesn't. He basically is saying, essentially we're playing with house money. So
he's the worst because he's great. He's awesome. But he's the one who said he was the underdog. He said, we love being the underdog.
Right. But they also have a 3-0 cushion where they, if they go out and play fast, they still have 3 more games. They know what it's like to be ahead 3-1. And I just think that right now, the pressure is all on Toronto still. They can say what they want to say about like, okay, we're gonna play our game and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. Okay, yeah. If you're down 1-0 in the first period, right now, I think it gets crushing in terms of the pressure.
The biggest thing to me, it always has been when you're down to your elimination game. There's just no more room for a stupid game. Like a bad game that can happen somewhere. Like Toronto could play really well tonight and tomorrow night, but then they could just have a bad game and lose in 6. Or at this point, when you take it to this level with no room for error, that's the biggest issue. Like they could definitely win, but can they play 4 games where nothing stupid happens? No bad call, no like running the goalie, no nothing. There's anything right now can throw your season over.
Yeah, here's what I would say. I would say Kevin's right, and you never take away that first round victory because it meant a lot because they hadn't been able to do it in so many years. But the one thing I did learn in business and being in management and even being in charge of like having programs change over, and if it didn't change over, you have to sort of look at the failures and see why and make sure it happens. And I've been a part of that. And so you have to take emotion out of it. And if I were Brendan Shanahan, I would say, listen, everybody needs to come in with 5 reasons why we weren't good enough to even win a game if they get swept or win 2 games against Florida. What are the reasons? Because we won the first round, and like Kevin said, we know what Tampa was. What was the reason we didn't win this round? Because now we have to overcome this. Because if we can't overcome this, where are we as an organization? Because we're not really close to the cup at all.
And that's the reason why this is why the upheaval and why the everything that is going on in Toronto. It's not that they're down 3-0. It's why they're down 3-0.
Right, and that's why you have to take emotion out of it. You don't want 4 guys yelling at a table. You want to have you want them to independently think about it and then find out independently together what their reasons are.
And why they're down 3-0 very simply is because Tkachuk and Bennett and Reinhart and Montour and the core and Barkov and the core group of the Florida Panthers have showed up and have been better than the core 4 forwards of the Maple Leafs who have not scored a goal in 3 games. If they don't score a goal tonight and they go out in 4 straight, they are going to wear this defeat around their neck.
Yeah,
it's never. I'm gonna have to go, but just let me say, it's never one thing.
No.
So the why is always important. I agree with Russ. Like the why is always, it doesn't matter that you lost. It's why you lost, and Russ is right about that. But I think ultimately they lost this series not so much because they were bad. They lost because Florida was really, 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 really good. I mean, how well they're playing is at a different level. And I mean, should we absolve the Toronto of blame in this? Well, no, you shouldn't do that. I mean, they got to step up too. But really, the number one reason they've lost is the Panthers have just been extraordinary. I mean, it's just that simple. They've been really, really good. So
do agree.
that he could paint. So anyway, I gotta go.
Thank you, Kevin.
See you later. See you later. Bye bye.
Let's just briefly mention Edmonton and Vegas game 4.
Big game.
Big game. Now
Who's in net?
Skinner.
No, for Vegas.
Oh, Aiden Hill.
Aiden Hill. I
Well,
mean,
after the way he
I was a backup for the San Jose Sharks when the Sharks were like one of the worst teams around.
blown away. I mean, look, I don't think, look, I don't think Aiden Hill's horrible. I don't.
No.
And I don't think Jonathan Quick is horrific. And I wasn't a fan of getting him. But the fact that you have him there and you're not even going to test him out, like, it doesn't even seem right.
Well, but I mean, they're going, Aiden Hill was in relief of Brassois, and Aiden Hill played very well in that game. So they're going to go with the goalie that brung them. And now the
Aiden
thing
Hill
is,
didn't bring him. He did.
in the last game, Russ.
Stop it. It's just there. That's
Oh my
what
God. I mean,
I don't know, but
One game, yeah. It's
there's
just
no
If-
track record for bring any team anywhere.
if they go to Jonathan Quick and they lose 7-2, then Cassidy is going to get excoriated because they went away from the goalie that won game 3 for them.
I don't know. I mean, at some point they're going to have to go to Jonathan Quick.
Right,
I mean, the reality is, I think it's very different. The only way they can get away with this is because they're up 2-1. Like if they were down 1-2,
Right.
they would have to. If they lost that game when Aiden Hill came in, they would have to go to Quick. But right now they're up 2-1, so they have another game they can, I guess, throw away.
They're playing with house money. They're
Edmonton's throwing away games too. So I mean, I guess they could throw away games, and we'll see. I mean, the reality is like they're. I don't know. I think that the goaltending in this situation in this game is absolutely crazy.
I mean, not since UC Markkinen have we seen less of a name in net in a big game.
Michael Layton.
Michael Layton. I was going to say.
Michael Layton, I would put up there with the UC Markkinen.
Markkinen was worse than Layton.
Martin Gerber.
He was okay though.
Well, Gerber never got to the point though. Like he didn't play an important game.
Right. I think that. I mean, you have to think Edmonton responds tonight in this game. I think, because this is
They just gave up last game. They
really played a bad game. Yeah, and they have to, and there was the games 2 and 3 were just opposites in this series. So it's just crazy, what's going to happen here. We don't really know, but I do think that one or both of these goalies could be forced out at some point in tonight's game. So it's really interesting to see who the hell is going to play. Where they're going to go there. And
just imagine if you were. I want to play it this way. If you were in your hockey fantasy pool and all of a sudden you were down for goalies and you got Aiden Hill as your pick, do you think you're going to win your pool?
No, because nobody's going to pick Aiden Hill because he's one of 4
That's
goals.
my point. That is exactly my point.
Right, Ross. I mean, but my chances would be better if I picked Aiden Hill over Jack Campbell. But no,
Campbell's got better stats than
Campbell's way better than Aiden Hill. Let's not even talk about it.
Like I said,
it's not even close.
Like I said, Aiden Hill played well in game 3. Came in when Brassois got hurt, but played effectively. So I don't have a problem with them going with Hill in game 4. Now, if Hill gets destroyed, if he gives up 6 or 7 goals, Draisaitl scores 4 goals, then you might see Quick. But the thing is, Quick hasn't played a game since April 14th.
But
so
that's on Vegas. That's not on Quick.
Right. But I'm saying that's going to be a factor. Is the fact that I'm sure he's been practicing, but he hasn't seen, it's the same calculation that Toronto has made with Matt Murray. Matt Murray hasn't played a game since April the 2nd. He's healthy and he's got more experience and he's won 2 Stanley Cups, but they're going with Joseph Woll because Joseph Woll's played and Murray hasn't. So we'll see.
I mean, Murray is similar. Oh, shoot. I got to run. Guys, 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay. So, yeah.
This is crazy to me. It's crazy talk. I don't believe any of it. And that last game was the first game Aiden Hill's ever played in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, come on.
But that says something that Aiden Hill has been the backup throughout for Brassois. So either, some of the things that has been said here about Quick, throwing a hissy and not wanting to be on the bench, maybe that's true.
Yeah, I think that's what I thought all along. But the idea is this. So let's say Aiden Hill gives up 2 or 3 Quick goals, no pun intended. Are you going to Quick? or are you just going to let the game just go down the drain?
Quick goals, like in the first 5 minutes of the first period type of thing?
First 7 minutes of the first period.
I think they'd go to quick.
I mean, that's what I'd like to see. I mean, if they would actually do that or not, if it gets to that or not.
I think they'd go to quick. I mean, I don't think there's a hesitancy to go to him in a situation like that. I just think right now, I mean, based on the evidence of them going to Laurent Brossoit, who was a backup in Winnipeg and a backup in Vegas, and he was the starting goaltender. I mean, if Logan Thompson was healthy, would they have gone with Logan Thompson? I'm sure they would have.
Oh, no, I think we all agree on that. But just, again, I get so many emails. People are really confused as to what coaches are doing with the goaltenders in these games. And I have to be honest, I'm scratching my head half the time. I am. Like, again, we didn't even talk about it, Mike. If the Leafs fall behind, is Matt Murray coming in, or is he really just too hurt and he's only there in case, he has to come in just to fill a few minutes? Or is he actually healthy enough to play a half a game? Like, I think it's a legit question at this point.
I think the only way that Matt Murray gets in tonight is if Wall is hurt.
Right. So that's it. He's just there.
He's just
there is nobody else.
And okay, like I said, I know the Leafs are not thinking this way in terms of, okay, he's available and he's the backup, but I do think that there is something to the fact that he's healthy, he's been medically cleared, and if he doesn't play in the offseason, he's healthy, he's medically cleared, he can be bought out.
No, but I mean, Barticus has a point too. And you brought this up, and Matt Murray was at some point supposed to be the playoff goalie. And
yes.
Now you do have him in the spot where if you wanted to try and turn this tide of a series, maybe he could, and he's not being used. Don't you find that odd? No,
because I think, I think the factor of tonight is the fact that he hasn't played in 5 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't played since April.
They're worried about rust.
They're worried about rust, and there's no room for error. And Woll played good in Game 3, and Woll's played in a couple games in the playoffs, so he's fresher, and he's, he's a young guy who you don't have a book on, so there's that factor. But I think it's mostly rust. And
right. So we're going to end the show with this. This is a great question. State of Survival. What's your favorite classic car that you would like to own, Mike? If not, I'll think about it. I could tell you in a second. I think I'm going to go with a Mercedes 450 SL. A neighbor had that. I kind of like that car. It was cool looking. You can't have too many people in it, but you can have a few people that you really want in there. And it always seemed like a really good car, cool status symbol. So I'll go with the 450 SL Mercedes.
If it was an American car, I would say an early 70s Ford or late 60s or early 70s Ford Mustang. I would have to look at, the particular years, especially the ones that were like sort of candy apple red. They had the real nice color. Yeah. If you're talking a European, you're going to see this one coming from far away, Ross. If it's a European car, it would be a black Jaguar, the one that the Equalizer drove.
Of course.
With the tan leather interior. It was the black Jag with the tan leather interior. It was a beautiful thing.
I mean, I do like Tony's choice of a 69 Camaro. Yeah. Those are really sweet. No question.
My grandfather had a 67 gold Camaro. It's like, yeah. And of course,
gold metallic too.
Yeah, gold. It was gold metallic. Yeah.
Yeah. All
right. For the departed Kevin Allen, for the absent Eklund, and for Roscoe, and I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, he dropped off. It's just hockey.